So, this will be my first video of the year, as well as my first video since last year. Even worse, it ain't my oh so fabled Walking Dead final season rewrite. So I'm sorry to the 2 people that barely gave a shit about it. Also, forgive me if what I say in this video comes off in a wrong manner, but I'm just an arsehole in general, so I don't really filter my words all that much. But today, I'm going to discuss one of life's most important topics to date. A topic which gets the mind of many churning day and night. A topic which has wrought endless debate, eternal pontificating, and has driven many men to tears. No, it is not the concept of alternative realities. Nor is it the ever mind-numbing argument of man's own dire inhumanity to man. And it's certainly not be the theory of linguistic relativism. No. It is more pressing than any of these ongoing issues. Indeed, good sir, we only have time to discuss the true challenges in our life in this day and age. And that's why we're going to be discussing anime shipping. And keeping in line with this topic, we will be starting off by talking about Gruvia and why it's factually and unarguably the worst pairing in Fairy Tail, and why there is no such thing as a true Gruvian. So stick around, you might find yourself excessively pissed off, much to my own delight. Now, to the 10 or so people who are still watching. I know, the rest of you have left, don't worry. You've probably clicked back at a later date, it's fine. You came back, that's all that matters. But regardless, I have a question to ask of you. When you think about your favourite ship, what are the top 3 qualities you would want to see in said ship? For myself, I like to see these 3 things, in no particular order. Number 1. Chemistry, as in the characters' interactions and how natural they feel. I'm pretty sure no one wants to see a forced pairing for anything other than Tumblr cringe purposes. So if you really do not want chemistry in your pairing for any reason other than that, who the fuck are you? Number 2. Interest. How invested are you into the pair as a people, and how meaningful is their time together? Does it develop anything? How are the characters affected throughout the story, positive or negative? And how are their behaviours portrayed? I'm pretty sure that's self-explanatory, I don't think I need to go too in-depth on that. And finally, this is the one that I think most people, if not everyone, should want, and that's development. Does the pairing actually have a purpose? A point A to the metaphorical point B that it needs to traverse? Are there any obstacles to overcome? Highs and lows? Small or massive conflicts? You know, the meat. Now, despite what your answer may be, it's still fairly difficult to determine whether or not... Determine, not determine. To be honest, a bad pairing can still hit at least 2 out of 3 things that you want to see, and it can still be a terrible fucking pairing. Like Gruvia, for example, is the best example here, because it may be interesting and it may have some development, but its interest is only strong because of how toxic the pairing actually is to both parties involved. Gruvia as a character is a character, if she wasn't so poorly handled, could have been a rather cool or even a solid character. But due to how she's portrayed and how the series and fans portray the development, it all kind of falls flat on its face. And I'll get more into that near the end of the video. But before we continue, I should probably tell you just what Gruvia is, just so we have no ifs or buts about the matter. Gruvia is the relationship between Grey Fullbuster and his creepy and obsessive number 1 fangirl, Juvia Loxa. Yes, it's that kind of pairing. That alone should tell you all you really need to know about the pairing. But I digress! Gruvia is a ship that is more than just your typical Sasuke x Sakura, or your Harry Potter x Ginny Weasley type deal. In fact, it's probably even worse in some areas, or even many areas. For example, Juvia as a character is actually more useless than pre-Chunin exam Sakura in terms of capability. So much so that it even seems like she's more of a bad luck charm for battle than anything else. But her fans actually seem to think that she's actually this strong, smart, independent woman who needs no man, when she's actually anything but. I mean, at least Sakura actually grows a little bit as a character. It's debatable on whether she changed for the better or the worst, but at least she changed. And at least those changes were reflected somewhat decently. So, congratulations, Sakura, you actually have a better character than someone else for once. I tell you what, hell must be freezing over with rainbow ice and ass-flavoured ice cream if this is the case. So, why does Gruvia suck so much? That's the question we came to answer. Well, don't worry, for I have the answers. All of them. Grey doesn't love Juvia. So, to start off strong, I think we should talk about the elephant in the room as to why this ship is just plain bad. And it's because, well, Grey just doesn't like Juvia romantically. I think that pretty much kills any potential this ship had to begin with, other than fanon potential. This ship has already failed at the first requirement. That has to be a record of some kind too. Jesus Christ, man. I don't really think I need to say anything else really, do I? But for the sake of actually padding out this video, I shall do so do not worry, video won't end here. So to get my point across, does anyone remember that scene in the Grand Magic Games arc where Grey outright proclaims his rejection to Juvia's advances? If you do, then congratulations! You already have acknowledged a major flaw this pairing has. And to those that haven't, well, now you know. Now, I've heard people try to parlay this scene into a pro-Gruvia argument with things like, "He's a tsundere," or "he didn't feel deserving of her affections," and shit of that nature. But you literally cannot argue otherwise when he outright states that he ain't gonna be saying yes to things he doesn't want. No amount of faulty mental gymnastics is going to save these arguments from their fate. I'm just putting that out there. It's a stupid hill to die on. Try and find another argument. Let's be honest here, Grey as a character isn't one to single people out in this kind of way. If he didn't feel worthy of Juvia's affections, then he would have felt the same about the way Fairy Tail still treats him. He would still be that overtly angry, self-destructive boy who first joined up all those years ago. And Grey isn't a tsundere. I'm not sure if any of these people have seen a male tsundere in anime, but they tend to be far more violent and sadistic. Grey just simply finds Juvia's advances to be unnerving and uncomfortable. He isn't threatening on pinning her to the wall and doing uncouth, unscrupulous acts upon her person. So he's not exactly the classical example of a male tsundere. Let's be honest here, this is a stretch at most. Grey has spent the entire show either trying to brush off her advances, outright reject them, or just dismiss her repeated attempts to win him over. His rejection of her during the Grand Magic Games arc is the only logical conclusion one can reach when it's all put into context. Grey simply does not see her in a romantic light, and I really don't think you can dispute that at this point. And to the inevitable counter-argument that Grey pseudo-confirmed his feelings for Juvia at the end of the series, first off, that entire arc was a mess from the get-go. Like, there was very little that was even worth watching in that final arc. Alvarez is one of the worst arcs of Fairy Tail for a reason. Secondly, this change came out of nowhere. There was no build-up, no realizations or process of said realization, just a random confession out of the nether. It was unearned and completely out of character for Grey, even. Just because a ship is pseudo-canon or outright confirmed doesn't mean it's good. No one here is denying that Gruvia is a canon ship at this point, but we are still allowed to question the validity of the ship, because it's still bad whether it's canon or not. Juvia can't take a hint. Now, swiftly segueing into the second problem, Juvia cannot fucking understand that no simply means no. From the second she joins the guild, Juvia has attempted to woo her precious Grey-sama and worm her way into his heart. Now, one may commend her on her dedication, but when someone rejects you, it's typically best to accept defeat on the issue or wait and see if things change. Both concepts seem to escape Juvia though, as she is commonly seen almost every episode trying to get Grey to accept her quote-unquote love for him. It gets to the point where she realises that she isn't getting anywhere with the conventional methods of relationships, so she just straight up decides to buy an illegal love potion to force Grey into becoming her ultimate husbando. You know, she just outright drugs him. Alongside this is the worrying behaviour of threatening and bullying other guild members that she randomly deems as a love rival due to her overactive imagination. The sheer amount of time she treats characters like Lucy really poorly due to her poor thought process is quite frankly as boring as it is ridiculous. It was played as a joke that became very tired very quickly. I think that's all I need to say on point number 2. Let's move on to number 3. Her awful behaviour. In short, her behaviour as a character, besides a few little things here and there, is one of the main reasons why she could never be with Grey. Ever since she has joined, all she has done is push people away from him, never apologising for that either, mind you. As mentioned, she is seen multiple times bullying Lucy over some half-baked notion that they are love rivals, commonly seen trying to intimidate, shout or even outright soak her with water just to cause embarrassment as a message to give up on getting Grey. Someone she isn't interested in anyway. Sorry Grey Lu shippers, I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but we've all had to do it at some point. I understand, you'll get through this quick enough. No matter how much she is told that Lucy isn't her love rival, she still refuses to believe it, and continues to do less than pleasant things to her. Another problem with Juvia is that she simply stalks him. That isn't exactly what we would call healthy behaviour, and it's rather creepy and clearly unwanted by Grey. Now I don't bring up the stalking factor purely because it's creepy, I also bring it up because it's a good showcase for how distrustful she is of Grey himself. Let's just say for pure example that he actually did like her, and that he and her are just dancing around the issue like a pair of awkward idiots. If she is so confident that he loves her and he is just playing hard to get, then why does she feel the absolute need to stalk him and monitor his jobs with various members? That isn't very trusting, nor does it show that Juvia actually loves him, it just shows she wants to possess him. And in that, there is a very clear difference. But the problem here is that the show doesn't portray this as a bad thing. If anything, it's portrayed as a cute thing or played up for comedic purposes. Well, soz my fellow fleshlings, but even in the more dramatic moments of the show, she is still pretty much the same person as she is in the comedy scenes. There's very little exacerbation going on here. We kind of have to go with what we have in that regard. All in all, Juvia doesn't exhibit feelings of love and affection, she simply wants to have her Grey Summer. And speaking of Grey Summer, Grey Summer versus Grey Fallbuster. As with all rabid fanboys and fangirls, their perfect version of their guy or girl always clashes against the real human being beneath the surface, no matter how perfect they may seem. But in typical hardcore fangirl fashion, they simply ignore all of this, or even worse, spin it into a positive thing or a simple non sequitur, since things like imperfections would ruin the perfect image they have of their target of affection. We can't have that now, can we? That would be mind-breaking. The problem with this kind of thinking is that it tends to completely disregard the thoughts and feelings of the person they obsess over in question. For Juvia, she hasn't truly spoken to the real Grey Fallbuster for more than possibly a day. Not due to Grey's own blunt honesty, but due to the fact that whenever he and Juvia interact, Juvia only ever sees herself interacting with Grey Summer. This seemingly perfect, infallible, Superman-esque character that is strong, sturdy, caring, and most importantly, hers and no one else's. But she hasn't truly seen or properly interacted with Grey Fallbuster. Grey Fallbuster isn't how Juvia sees him. He is full of flaws and rife with emotional baggage, full of trauma and psychological damage. But most importantly for this topic, he is not the property of Juvia Loxer, not in any way, shape or form. He hasn't expressed any real evidence of wanting to be so either. Grey Fallbuster is impulsive, aloof, cold at times, slightly arrogant, aggressive and so on. Grey-sama isn't any of those things. At least according to Juvia. And if he is, they are only there in ways that she can twist into a full-on, unarguable positive instead of a human flaw that is neither completely good nor completely bad. All of those traits she sees in Grey-sama have become so fully ingrained into her psyche that she simply can't function without him around to give her mental and emotional stability anymore. Which brings me on to the fifth and final main point in why Gruvia sucks copious amounts of ass. Cultist reliance. Just like how cultists absolutely require a cult leader to give them meaning, guidance and functionality, Juvia completely relies on Grey to give her life. Not literally, of course. She isn't a vampire like your boy, Dio! But Juvia is shown to completely break down when she has no way of seeing or knowing where Grey is, as shown when he completely disappears during the Avatar arc, where Juvia just stands around for months, literally unable to take care of herself because Grey suddenly left the place he was at, which she subsequently tracked down and inserted herself in. She seemingly cannot function after a while. It's kind of like taking your charger out of your phone when it's on 5% battery. It's not going to last long. Even if it still has some sort of semi-functionality to it, it won't be there forever. That isn't how someone acts around someone they love, regardless of thought process, personality or mindset. That is the action of someone who has just lost their favourite toy, and is sulking in a corner, hoping to guilt-trip the parent or friend into giving it back. This utter reliance on having Grey-sama around like a cult leader only reflects how she truly feels about Grey in general, and it ain't something Gruvia shippers will like to hear. Now, there are a few similarities among these problems, and that is because it's a genuinely reoccurring thing with Juvia, and it all points to one thing that pretty much gives you all you need to know about how she feels about him. Juvia Loxa doesn't love Grey. She loves what she sees as Grey-sama. She doesn't see a person in front of her, she doesn't even consider it until she has to kill Keith in Tartarus, and even then that doesn't go anywhere. Again, rendering herself near non-functional in the very next arc. When she looks at Grey, she sees the Grey-sama who took her reign away, not the Grey Fullbuster who simply was fighting a danger to his family, just like everyone else was at the time. It's just like how Ginny Weasley doesn't actually see Harry Potter and instead just sees the boy who lived. You can argue that she loves him, hell, you can even argue that Grey loves her back, but at the end of the day, if you fall in love with a self-made cartoon character that happens to look like someone in real life, then all you do if you pursue that relationship is hurt that real person and hurt yourself and hurt those around you. But the worst thing here is that Juvia doesn't ever seem to actually realise this during the show's runtime, nor will she ever. I'm willing to bet on that. And to be completely honest, the only thing that Grey has completely fucked up on his end is just how he lets it happen. He only stops the occurrences when he's directly being targeted. Now I know why he's like that, I get it, but it doesn't make this pairing any less unhealthy or downright acidic to him and to Juvia. He likely doesn't want to do anything because he genuinely doesn't want to hurt her. Despite his aloof attitude, he's actually much nicer of a guy than people actually give him credit for. The outburst that happened that one time in the GMG arc was likely only due to how long it had been going on and Urza's pushing for him to be more honest with his feelings. Now if we're being realistic here about this pairing and how it would actually turn out, and if there was actually any decent writing done on this, I could only see Grey going into this relationship with her after being guilt-tripped or just merely breaking down after so long and giving her what she wants. That wouldn't be a happy relationship for him, and it certainly wouldn't be healthy for him either. And Juvia would be in love with her version of Grey, which would not be real love for her, and at some point, she would begin to see that she isn't being appreciated the same way. Her version of her Grey would begin to crumble. She'll start seeing the imperfections, and the way he may or may not actually be unhappy around her or distant. And because Juvia as a character lacks any sort of reflection and lacks any sense of comprehension to her being, she will never consider what she does to be wrong. She hasn't considered anything she's done to be wrong, in fact. That's one of the worst aspects to have if you're trying to start a relationship. I'm pretty damn sure, speaking from experience, you don't want that kind of shit. And that's really it. I'm done with this. I think I've made my point, my gospel has been spoken, and no one can disagree. Now, of course, you may feel free to leave your disagreements, or praise, or agreements, or even neutral observations in the comments below. Please do let me know, in fact. But, of course, we all know that I'm correct. I'm never wrong, after all. We all know this, even though you've only probably seen one video where I've actually spoken. So, you know, you don't need any more evidence than this. My word is all you need. So thank you for watching. Anyway, I'm out. Now please, do kindly fuck off.